Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now, back in 2022, I spent 6 months with the MSRT Ranger Limited Edition. And as a long-termer, I just fell in love with it. And it's one of the few long-termers that, when it went back, I really wanted to buy that car. I actually reached out to MSRT and said, can I buy it? But in the end, I didn't buy it. I absolutely loved that car. And at the time, I went up to the MSRT facility in Wales and I saw renders of the replacement vehicle, the new MSRT Ranger, the car that's behind me. And the renders just looked so cool. I couldn't wait to see it in the metal, actually physically see the car. Well, it's out now, and I've spent the last couple of weeks living with one, and I thought I would give you my first impressions. But first up, it just looks awesome. First up, if you're new to the channel and didn't see my videos I did when I had the Ranger as a long-termer, or if you haven't heard of MSRT, who are they? Well, the CEO of MSRT is Malcolm Wilson of rallying fame. And MSRT have this heritage of motorsport, and today they're most well known on the road car scene anyway for their sported up Rangers and also their Transits. So this starts off life as a Ford Ranger. The way that they create the new MSRT Ranger is a little bit different from the old one. In the old one, the vehicles used to come into the MSRT factory and then have everything taken off and all of the new bits put on. And I've got a video on the channel about that, so head on over. I'll put a link up here and a link in the description below if you want to watch that one. The way these are done is a little bit different today. These are originally made in South Africa, actually, but when a car is spec'd as an MSRT, there are a few things put on at factory, but then they go to the Dagenham facility in Ford, where everything else is kind of put on, and they are turned into the MSRT Ranger. So the first question is, I guess, what's different about this compared with a standard Ford Ranger? I'm actually going to start under the bonnet because there's nothing different under here. So there's no tuning or performance increases at all. However, the difference between this and the previous gen MSRT Ranger is significant because that now is a 3-litre EcoBlue V6 twin turbo diesel with 240 PS and 600 Newton meters of torque. And that makes a huge difference to the driving dynamics of this car. The old Ranger's engine, it was only a 4-pot, 2-litre diesel. It always felt a little bit underpowered. This, it's smooth and powerful, and it's got a 10-speed automatic gearbox, so it moves through the gears really nice and smoothly in a really linear way. The other thing to point out as well, because I'm sure many of you are thinking the question, it's not got a wet belt, because I know there are quite a few Ford vehicles at the moment that have wet belts on them that have lots of issues. This doesn't have a wet belt, so that is good news. So no performance upgrades then. It's all really an aesthetics job, both inside and out. So let's start with outside and the front end of the car. Now, I love the styling of the new Ford Ranger anyway. I love these kind of boomerang daytime running lights around the headlamps. But the first thing MSRT do is put a brand new front end on the car. So a new kind of chin, spoiler and valance there. And it just gives the car this incredible front end presence. And that, coupled to an 82mm wider track, makes the car look wider and squatter and more aggressive. The MSRT badging now is a little bit more subtle. There's just a little badge on here at the front and one at the back. There is a styling pack of stickers that you can have on the car, but even they're way more subtle than the styling stickers I had on my car. Front end wise though, I really like it. And in this particular colour spec, I think it looks absolutely ace. Let's run down the side of the car. Right at the edge here, you've got these little intakes here, which are very cool. There's a few fake vents on here, but I'll forgive it just because it looks great. brand new wings, so that allows a wider track, as we've mentioned already, and then 21-inch, these lovely kind of combination of matte black and a little bit of diamond cut alloys, really standout piece. And then you come down, new sills. This car's also got the automatic side steps, which are an option. The first 100 vehicles, I think, in the UK are coming with those, but you can spec those. That makes getting in and out much easier. You've also got sort of some fake vents there, but they look quite nice. And then coming down the back, again, different wings at the back, just making the car look wider and meaner. So I've mentioned it's wider, it's also been lowered. So it's got Ped's suspension setup, which lowers the ride height by 40 millimeters. And that gives it a really cool stance on the road, I think. What that's also going to do, though, is compromise its off-road capability. If you think about the front chin splitter, lower suspension, ride height being lowered. So this is very much a car designed for the street rather than off-road, even though the Ranger has all of the off-road toys you want and actually is probably very capable off-road. I don't think that's the MSRT Ranger's forte, if I'm honest. The last bits of external styling to look at happen at the back of the truck. Now, first up, if you look at a standard or normal Ford Ranger, there's like a little rollover hoop that happens just here. So MSRT have removed that, and then they've put this little duck spoiler on the top of the rear window glass, which I think looks really cool and just adds a very sporty feel to it. And then this car has a factory fit roller shutter cover on the back. Now, I actually had a retrofit one of those put on the Ranger I ran as my long-termer, and it just makes the usability of this vehicle go into another level because you can now put stuff in the back and not worry about it from a security point of view. There are some mounting points here if you wanted to put roof rails. Again, I had roof rails on the back of mine and I put a cycle carrier on the back, and that was, for me and my life and for cycling and mountain biking, was just absolutely brilliant. And if we come round the back, you again got a little spoiler on the back here, which complements the one on the rear window glass. You've got a different bumper with kind of diffusers on it. And if I just open up the back, the really nice thing about this window shutter here is it's electric. So you can just open it up and now you've got a big bay. And the really important thing about this is payload wise, 1 ton Euro pallet, which is cool. That means it's VAT compliant, so you can claim the VAT back as a commercial vehicle. And then we've got a tow hitch just here. In fact, the tow hitch is in the back of the car. You just get that because it's huge. I could put my tow hitch on just in there if I attach it properly anyway. And this will tow a 3.5 ton brake trailer, so maximum towing capacity you can get on the road, maximum payload capacity you can get on the road, makes this car very, very usable, and that crossover between commercial and personal use. But we might need to talk about that. Let's jump inside and we'll have a look at the inside, but also talk about the elephant in the room. These side steps do make it a lot easier to get in and out of. And once you're in here, there's a completely new, refreshed interior. The seats are lovely, and we'll have a chat about the front cockpit in a little while. But this is a double cab pickup, and that's important because in the UK, the tax rules for double cab pickups changed in the budget. And as of 2025, April 2025, to be specific, the tax rules change. And what that means is that a double cab pickup will be treated in the same way as a car for capital allowances, benefit in kind, and then some other deductions from basically business profits and so on. And it will be interesting to see what happens because this type of vehicle was really popular for business owners because they could buy it and get a pretty hefty tax break, and it would be a really cost-effective vehicle to run from a tax point of view. A bit like EVs, actually. And that's changing for double cab pickups. You can still claim the VAT back because it can carry a ton payload, and that's 20% on the purchase price of the car. So let's cover that. These are just shy of £51,000 if you claim the VAT back. If you can't claim the VAT back, they're just shy of £61,000. So rear of the car, really nice. I love the trimming and the work that's been done on the seats. But talking about seats, these front seats are very special indeed. And the front of the cab is really cool. It's quite a luxurious feel to it, actually. It's nice in here for a pickup. Seat-wise, so these seats, so in the previous gen Ranger, they just kind of recovered the seats. These have got new bolsters and styling and design. They're really, really comfortable and look really cool in a suede and eco leather mix with blue stitching. They look absolutely excellent. Next up, the steering wheel. Now, the old MSRT steering wheel in the Ranger and in the Transit van had a kind of love or hate steering wheel. I was never a massive fan. I just didn't feel the ergonomics of it felt very good. This is completely different. It's a really nice wheel to hold in the hand. You've got the it's Sync 4A Ford infotainment system with a 12-inch display. In fact, we'll just fire the car up, bring it to life. It does Apple CarPlay, and it's a really usable system. There's real buttons for things like climate control. I really quite like the gear selector. You've got a couple of places to carry really big water bottles, which I like a lot. You've got a big bin just there. You've got door bins. So as you would imagine, it's kind of designed around a commercial vehicle. So it's really easy to live with and easy to use. The other thing is all of the surfaces, I mean, although you've got the sort of leather feel on the door cards, the rest of it's all kind of nice, wipe clean, easy to clean. Because I guess a lot of people, I'm going to turn this off now because the air conditioning's really noisy. You know, if you're using this Monday to Friday as a commercial vehicle, you could be getting it in muddy boots and all that kind of stuff. And then at the weekend, you want it to be a nice car that you might use with the family, or you might go for like adventure sport, like mountain biking or walking or something along those lines. So, you know, the interior is actually a really nice place to be. It's almost so nice because it's got those MSRT trimmed mats. You almost feel guilty getting in here with dirty boots on. So it's, I don't know, that use as a commercial vehicle, I think you'd have to, I think it'd be trade limited. I don't think you'd buy one of these if you were a plasterer, put it that way. But if you were, I know, an electrician or one of the cleaner trades, you might get away with it. But yeah, interior wise, really nice. The next thing we need to do is take it for a drive, because the way it drives is so different to the old car. It's unbelievable. Well, after some pretty grotty and miserable weather here in the UK over the last week or so, it's beautiful today. I also decided to go on brand with my MSRT gilet that the guys gave me the last time I had a car from them. It's a pretty cold day today, just 7 degrees, beautiful sunshine, but let me just start to walk through this car. I guess the first things to say is it's a diesel. So first up, they're a bit noisy at startup, but once they're underway, it is a really nice, smooth unit, and it's just got this kind of relentless power. This isn't a fast car by any means, but it's no slouch. And if you drive it in just normal drive mode, it's got plenty of performance. The first thing you are going to notice in this car straight away is the ride. It's quite choppy. Especially from the rear. It almost feels like the rear is not bouncing up and down, but it's a very, very firm ride at the rear. And I know that's the fact. I've already mentioned the fact it can tow 3.5 tons. It can carry a ton of payload. And that means that the suspension setup needs to be able to do that. And the flip side of that means it's going to be a little bit harsh and a bit choppy on the road. So there is a characteristic in these pickups, and I haven't driven a huge number of them, but the old Ranger was the same. They're a bit kind of almost like bouncy. The faster you go, the better that gets. It almost smooths it out. But at sort of 30 to 50 miles an hour on a road like this, it just does feel a little bit bouncy. But I'll forgive it that, because the breadth of capabilities of the car, that's the compromise you pay. As we come into this 30, one of the things you're going to also realise when you start driving this car, as it gets more built up, or if you head into a car park or an area where the roads are small and the turnings are quite tight, it's a big car. I mentioned it's got a wider track, but it's also quite a long car, so it's just something to bear in mind. Now, I've driven around in lots of quite big cars, so you get used to it very quickly. The nice thing that this car doesn't suffer from, that some SUVs do, is height. I remember when I had my Defender long-termer, because I had that roof rack on the top, I was just totally paranoid about underground car parks all the time. When you go in them, you'd be worried about the clearance wasn't good enough. You don't have that problem in this car. And actually this week I took it up to Heathrow into one of the short stay car parks, and it was just fine. It was a bit fiddly getting it in the parking bay. It's a wide car, so there's not a huge amount of space either side of the car before you hit the white line. And because it's so long, you tend to maybe stick out the front a little bit. But it's a big car, so there's no great surprises there, right? Now, this video is more about first impressions of the car rather than an ultimate test. But I did put this car to the ultimate test a couple of weeks ago because I've been doing the Dream Garage build. All of the stuff we had in the garage, we moved to a storage unit in Chichester, and it's been there for the last few months. And we moved it there in a Luton van with the help of some friends. But I emptied it using this and the pickup at the back. And it was really impressive actually how much stuff I could get in the pickup. I carried bikes, lots of boxes and heavy things and big things. It took me like 9 trips to the tip. So roughly speaking, a Luton van's worth of stuff is about nine of these worth. But it was just really easy. Even the big e-bikes got in the back just about. I would rather carry bikes in a pickup like this with a bike carrier on the back rather than sticking them in the bed. But it was a really good test of the versatility of this car. And the nice thing is, you know, with that I had the back open and I was able to put lots of stuff in there. Now that roller shutter is closed, and it just makes the car look sleek and really tidies up the side profile, the rear profile. And it almost turns it from being a kind of utility vehicle into a much more sporty looking vehicle. In terms of sporty drive, as I said, the performance difference between this and the previous Ranger is night and day. This has a really nice, I want to just accelerate away. The gearbox works really well. I'm not quite so sure why you need 10 gears in a gearbox, but they're so short and the transition between them is so smooth, it almost feels like a single gear, bizarrely enough. Yes, it will kick down if need to and you're coming up a hill, but you never feel short on power. You never feel like it's struggling. I'd love to tow with it just to see what it's like, but I can imagine it would make an excellent towing vehicle. But yeah, it's just got a really nice, smooth. I love diesels. We demonize them so much, don't we? The Defender I had a 3-litre diesel in it and it was just so smooth. And I know these have got, you know, they've got the DPFs in them. This runs AdBlue. Another thing to note, although I haven't had it long enough to really be sure, but I'm pretty sure this doesn't have the addiction to AdBlue that the old Ranger had. The old Ranger was terrible on AdBlue. I've been putting it in every 1,000 to 1,500 miles. This, if you look at the menu, I think I've still got 3,500 miles worth of AdBlue left. So it seems to be a lot less addicted to it than the old one, which is a really good thing, because it's a pain in the arse having to put AdBlue in. Now, I've parked up here to take some pictures, but one of the things I really like is if you leave the car in drive and turn the car off, the gear stick automatically moves itself back into park. And that's really cool. I like that feature a lot. It just keeps going. This car drives so much better than you think it will. And it's actually, the more you drive it and the more you ask of it, the sportier it feels. And it can kind of match the sporty looks. That lowered ride height, the widened flared arches. It looks like a sporty car and it actually drives like one. When you get to a corner like this, you do have to be aware it's clearly a truck. It's quite heavy. It's not designed for Nürburgring lap times or anything. But it'll certainly put a smile on your face and deliver an impressive amount of performance. Practicality wise, I guess room in the back isn't massive, and with it having the sort of truck back rather than an enclosed boot. Maybe it's a little bit more, you know, for smaller things they'd move around and so on. MSRT do now do a kind of truck top for this as well, so if you wanted that to make it even more practical to put bigger stuff in, especially if you maybe wanted to carry dogs in the back rather than in the passenger compartment itself, that may well be useful. But when you come out of a corner, you can just hear that gearbox is just so smooth, the transitions through the gears. And actually, once the engine's warm, it's a bit clunky at startup, but then all diesels are. Once the engine's warm, it's pretty quiet. There isn't as much road noise in here as you'd think. MPG wise, so I've done about 250 miles so far in the truck, and I'm averaging 23.2 miles per gallon, which isn't great, but I guess aerodynamics and weight are working against us on that one. And I'm sure if I tried a little bit harder, I could probably improve that somewhat. So first impressions of the new Ranger is it's just night and day better than the old one, and I absolutely love the old one. Yes, they're a lot of money. Yes, there's issues around how people buy them and the sort of tax they can claim back and so on. But I'm sure for some people, if you like tick the right box, it's a really good option. And if you want a truck that just looks cool and has a presence about it, then this thing is definitely something you should look into. I've got a couple more weeks with the car, so hopefully I'll maybe get to do a bit more of a sort of challenge or something. But its road manners are, let me just accelerate here again. It's lovely. It's so nice to drive, so comfortable, so un-truck-like. Anyway, let me know what you think of the new MSRT Ranger. I'm a big fan. But if you enjoyed that one, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film. You take care, guys. Drive safe.